To make sure that we have the node_modules folder available in the published output for Ode to Food, I'm going to make some changes in the CS project file for Ode to Food. In Visual Studio, I can right-click a project and say that I want to edit the CS proj file directly. If you're using Visual Studio Code or some other editor, you can just open the project file in the editor, and there's just two changes that I want to make inside of this project file. And there's two pieces of XML that I want to add to this project file, and two pieces of XML that I want to remove. And just to give you some background, the CS project file in .NET is what we call the MSBuld file for a project. That's because there's a tool for .NET named MSBuld that has been around since the very beginning of .NET that understands how to process a CS proj file and execute the instructions inside to build a project and publish a project and do many other things. Since MSBuld has been around since the beginning of .NET, over the years it's collected many features, so it's very extensible, it can do a lot of things. Sometimes even MSBuld can be a bit overwhelming with the number of different approaches and features that you can use with it. But here's what I want to do. I want to automate the npm install for this project whenever there's a build taking place, and then I want to make sure that the publish operation knows to include the node modules folder that is created by an npm install. So first, let's take care of the npm install step itself. What I'm going to do is paste a small bit of XML into the CS proj file. It doesn't really matter where this exists. But what I'm adding to the project file is a new target for MSBuld. So what MSBuld is looking for when it opens up a CS project file will be different targets to execute. There's many targets included by this SDK that we don't see, that are in effect for this project that we don't see in this file, but what we're doing is adding another target. We're telling MSBuld that the name of this target is postbuild, and what we want you to do is execute the steps inside of this target after this other target that's defined for you. That other target is compute files to publish. What we want to do after that other target completes is execute npm install. Now, I could make this fancier. I could make sure this only happens in a certain way during debug or during a release configuration. I could also check to make sure that node and npm is installed before trying to execute this step. But we're just trying to do the simplest possible thing that can work for our scenario. So do an npm install that will give me a node modules folder. Now, unfortunately, the publish operation by default is going to ignore a folder named node_modules. So what I need to do is bring in another little snippet that says and provides instructions to say, I have some content that I want to include in this project, and that content exists in node_modules. Take that folder and everything inside of it, and when you go to publish, I want you to always publish that content and preserve the newest files. So that's going to make sure that when we do a .NET publish, not only do we have an npm install that executes, but we also copy over the contents of node_modules into the published output. Now, because this content group exists, I'm now going to delete some XML. You may or may not have to do this, but anytime you're inside of the Visual Studio Solution Explorer and you right-click folders to say, include this in the project or exclude this from the project, and what we did earlier in the course was right-click node modules and say, include this in the project. Anytime you perform that operation, sometimes there's some strange artifacts that are left behind in the CS project file telling Visual Studio include this and don't include that. And that's the problem that we're facing here with this item group. It's trying to include some individual files from the node modules directory. What I want to do is replace this content, all of the content items in this item group, with the content that I specified here to just say take all of node modules. And for me, when I'm in Visual Studio, and for me, whenever I perform these operations, for whatever reason, it added two separate item groups with node_modules and individual files. I just want to delete all of those, remove those, and leave behind just this content that says take all of node modules. So now we have a step and a target that will do an npm install. We're telling the project system to include node_modules in the published output. I am going to save this file and let's return to the command line. Now what I want to do is pop back into the folder where I was executing .NET Publish. Let me use the up arrow and try to find where I executed that command. Here it is, .NET Publish into ctemp ode to food. Let's execute this again. I should see some npm output scroll by, and I do. That's a good sign that we executed the npm install. And now let's look inside of the temp ode to food folder and take a quick look to see if we have node modules, which we do, and that's good. I should now be able to do a .NET on odefoo.dll and start this application running. But before I do that, let's talk about the difference between this .NET publish operation, which depends on a framework being installed on the host system, and a self-contained application.